Hey everyone, it's Isaya. Welcome. Just give me a show our faces. Hello. So this is another episode of my podcast, Isaya's Inspiring Evenings, and it is one in the very mysterious new series called The Broom, The Brush, and the Beyond. So this new series, I think I've done one episode in this new series only, and it is a conversation with a guest about the intersection of art and spirituality. It's going to be mostly centering around the iterations of spirituality that are connected to nature, mysticism, galactic origins, ancient traditions, paganism, forgotten rituals, mythology, and the like, and whatever, because it's about the beyond. These conversations happen live, and tonight we have as a guest the amazing Ruby Coupe, or should I say Dotty Delightful, because she is both. So before I introduce Ruby a little more, I would like to specify that we're going to do 3 episodes together over the course of 3 weeks. So it's all about art, creativity, and magic. And it's going to be, I love the idea that we're going to be having these ongoing conversations. So, if you don't know Ruby, Ruby is an amazing artist and zine maker. So, if you don't know what a zine is, you'll have to stick around and we'll explain. To inspire you to transform your life in a powerful way with creativity, nature, art, and magical zines. Her work is all about connection to self and nature. So, hey, Ruby, first of all, hello. And before we go into what the topic of the podcast, I would like you to explain in very briefly what is a zine and what does a zine maker do.
Okay, so a zine comes from the word fanzine, from the punk era, when bands wanted to advertise what they were doing and they'd photocopy these little mini magazines. So since then, they've kind of developed and evolved, and mine are more like a mini magazine because they're very put together with lots of colour, lots of imagery, and each one is about a specific subject. So mine are more aiming towards the magazine, but they are zines because they're self-published. They're about a certain topic that you're passionate about, and some of them are niche.
Sorry, to be specific, we're talking about paper things, right? Things that
paper things, yes.
If I order them from you, you send them to me through the post, right? We're not talking about digital art, although I know you do digital stuff as well. But the zines are physical products, which I actually love. I have a few, and I'm really happy.
Yeah, they're all physical. I either print them at home or I get them outsourced printed, and they range from 8 pages to 32 pages.
And I know that you sew them at home. They're hand sewn with a magic Singer sewing machine. Yes, I love that. So tonight and the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about art, magic, and creativity for well-being and general happiness. So let's just be very clear. We are not talking about great famous artists that they're amazing. We are not talking about creating masterpieces. We are talking about how art, magic, and creativity will help you feel happier, feel better on a day-to-day basis. And I love that. It's not about only aiming for the masterpiece. It's about process. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
So today, the episode that you titled the episode, The Art of Noticing. So what do you mean by that?
So I think there's this really interesting thing that when you are creative, and everybody's creative, they just have to find it within themselves and pull it out. But when you pull that creativity out yourself, that you start noticing things. So normally, if you're, say, like you go into town to the shop, a lot of people will just be headed for the shops and they don't notice anything because they're just in the destination. But when you're creative, you are aware of everything. So you'll notice things like old signs, dates on buildings. You don't just look linear at where you're going. You look up, you look down. You'll notice little whorls in a drain where moss has grown. You know, you'll see paint peeling off a sign, and you'll think, oh, that's really good. That's like texture. And so it's this art of noticing the little things, and the more that you notice the little things, the happier your life becomes, because you're noticing the little bits of magic that a lot of people miss every day.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about being in a state of shall I say, increased awareness with whatever we do. So when I'm walking to the
Yeah.
shop, when I'm talking to you, um, and both you and I have a very let's call them busy backgrounds at this minute. And while you were talking, I was looking behind you and I was thinking, oh, what's this? I wonder what this is. And and I was literally practicing noticing. And for me, it's like I know that everything is part of my art, let's put it this way. That
Yeah.
Cooking, I will notice the color of the vegetables, and and the shape of them. I very often stop while I'm cooking to photograph the vegetables because I think they look very interesting. I'm not sure I don't do anything with it instantly, and I think that's a really important bit, is that noticing does not mean, oh, let me now use that in a piece of art or something.
No,
It's
it's just, it's filling up your inspiration, isn't it? In your mind, it's filling up that inspiration that you have to keep topping up all the time. And then eventually you might be doing something like making a painting, and then without you even realizing, the color of the vegetables that you took a
Mhm,
photograph of a month ago will start appearing on the canvas, because it's like you've topped up your inspiration bank,
mm,
and then you just pull at it if you want to, and you might not. You might just take a photo, and then that's it. That's part of the process of it. The process is, you've noticed it, you've paused, you've had a sacred moment where you've paused. And I think that's really important
mhm.
in this busy world that we're in.
Yeah, and I think that the idea also is that when we start, it's a learning curve. So the more you do it, the more you do it, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are so many things that we can start noticing that are happy things,
Yeah.
because the general picture might look gloomy at this minute. So we're recording this in July, sorry, 2024. If you're listening to that in the future, so at this minute we are in France. I live in France, and we are in between two turns of elections. And the first turn is not looking good. Let me put it this way. So, and there's a lot of fear in the country. There's a lot of doom and gloom feeling, and I can very nicely, listening to the radio, or I don't watch TV, but listening to the radio or just to my friends, I can get sucked in this doom and
Mm.
gloom. Now, there's also just outside the window there's a tree that moves in a certain way that I look at daily, and it changes with the seasons and everything, and that makes me happy. Like, it makes me happy for one tiny minute, but that's one less minute that I'm in the doom and gloom that I was mentioning before. And I
Yeah.
think it's about adding up those minutes. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. And yeah, because you can have this really mundane feeling of your life, like, oh, you're on Groundhog Day, you do the same thing or every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our general election tomorrow here. It's
Mm-hmm.
a vote here, and it's the same in the UK. There's a feeling of despair. Um, and it is easy to get sucked into it. And like you, I don't watch the TV either. But you can pick things filter through on
Yeah.
social media and stuff, and it's quite easy to attach to all the stuff. But if you start noticing little things, a ladybird crawling up a tree, or a snail that comes out after the rain, and you just watch him. I have a little snail song in my head, and it goes doo, be doo, be doo. It's so like when he's just shuffling along, and it is just like for a minute or 30 seconds, but it takes you out of the mundane and out of the doom and gloom, and you start seeing actually there's magic everywhere. You know, we don't have to listen to what's going on out there. There's magic everywhere we look, and it is starting to pick those bits up, because that makes your life happier.
Yeah, that makes your life happier. That makes, you mentioned mental health when we discussed prior to this conversation, and I think we should really go in there. It makes you happier. It makes you saner also, because
Yeah,
it keeps you in a place where you have, well, I have, let me go with the I instead of you. It keeps me in a place where I have power, and I only have power over my life and the way I'm feeling. And if I'm not feeling good, guess what? I'm not changing the world. I'm only changing the world when I feel good. If I don't, I just go and crawl under my duvet, and that's it for me. Um,
yeah,
if we're believing that we can do something around, making the world a better place, we need to be in a better place ourselves. And so
yeah,
it's really about adding up those minutes of noticing slash happiness slash consciousness, whatever you want to call them. Um, and it is about feeling, for me, it is about feeling that magic and that art is everywhere. If you watch, even I live in a very old house, and so it's moving a lot, kind of, the wood is moving, so there are cracks, and I love the cracks because the cracks have a story to tell. Or I whatever, you can find interest, I think, in very, very small things. I know that you're a nature fan, so nature is number one. um what can I say, reservoir for little minutes of magic, because there is so
oh yeah,
much.
yeah, definitely. And then other things like textures.
Mm,
Like if it can be as simple as noticing the texture on a blanket that's on your knee when you're just sitting down in the evening or something, and you might have had a stressful day, and then just rubbing that texture and then looking at each fiber, and it's like I keep calling it a sacred pause, because that's what it is. It's like this sacred pause out of your life. So it could be a texture, or it could be a color that
mm,
sparks you, and and then you see a beautiful blue, and then next thing is you're thinking, oh, that's like the ocean, and then you're feeling what it's like to be at the ocean, and it can lead to all these different
yeah.
things. um
A few weeks back, I was. I'm going to go on and give some examples, if that's all right for you, of things like that, because I think it's interesting for the listeners to maybe see that there are very many ways that this can happen. So a few weeks back, I was in a ceremony for the migrants who have died at sea. So a bunch of associations and NGOs were creating a memorial, a physical memorial for the people who have died trying to escape difficult conditions and to migrate to other countries. So it was a very, very heavy afternoon, right? Uh, we kind of spent a lot of time reading the names of the dead people out loud so that their names are spoken. It was kind of, really sad. And I'm an emotional person, so I was very sad. Not that I knew any of them, but it's not because I don't know them, I can't care, right?
yeah,
So at some point, I thought, I need a break. I need to get out of this. So there were hundreds of people, right? It was a big thing. And I was invited because I'm a singer, and we sang songs from various countries in the world from where people have had tried to emigrate. And so after the singing, or no, before the singing actually. Anyway, I needed some air, and it was outside, so I was breathing fine. But I just went a little away, and I sat myself down on the grass, and I put my palms like this on the grass. And just the little tiny feeling of this grass on my hands was amazing. It was like, oh, it tickled a little bit. It was a not so shit day because it's been raining a lot around here, but this day was a nice day. And just this feeling of the grass under my hands made me feel so much better. And it was tiny. It was just like, barely a feeling or a tingling, but it was like, of course, I was sitting on the earth, which for me is always kind of a regrounding situation. But basically, I think it's, for me, the noticing things. It's using our senses. So of course we
Yeah.
mentioned seeing things. For me, being a visual person, that's number one, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, as you mentioned, texture or feeling things, touching things, hugs. And then I think all of the senses can do this. So if you hear things,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
I'm a music crazy person, so when there's no music, I feel sometimes I love the silence, but and
Yeah.
then I think smell is good also. Around here, it's strawberry season. Every time I smell a strawberry, it gives me some joy. It's like, love the
Um,
smell of it. It's like, strawberries.
so lovely. Every night before bed, when I was a little girl, my mum used to have albus oil, which is like a eucalyptus kind of oil, and she'd smell of that every night before bed when she tucked me in. And now, as a grown up, every night before bed, I smell a little bit of albus oil just before I go to sleep
Oh, I
because
love
it
that.
transports me back to that cozy, safe feeling.
Of course, yeah.
It's
And it's
really
it's
nice.
it's it's noticing that it helps you feel better, so you do it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
and it's tiny things. Because it's never going to be 24/7 perfection of happiness. But if we can add up the minutes, then we can help the thing.
We
The
can.
taste as well. What are you eating?
Oh
What are you
God,
guys eating? Or are you eating good things that make you feel happy?
yeah.
Um,
It's
or
Tom and I practice tantra, and sometimes we make a cacao or a hot chocolate with cacao in it, and we do this little ritual where we close our eyes and we hold the mug and we inhale the smell, and
mm,
then we connect with the smell of it first, and we listen to this meditation about the ancestors and this that, and the other about the connection. But then that first sip with your eyes closed, that creamy velvet chocolatey
mhm,
taste in your mouth. It's like the best thing you've ever tasted. And that's shutting off some of your senses to enhance another sense. It's
yeah. Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, and you can do
Really?
that with, the whole ceremony of cacao, or you can do it with. There's actually a French writer who wrote a book that is called "The First Mouthful of Beer and Other Miracles." So
That's really,
the instant when I don't like beer, but if you're a beer lover, the first mouthful of this fresh tingly thing in your mouth, you can just and enjoy it with
yeah,
in conscious, and that changes everything.
it does.
And
It could
that's,
even be chips, couldn't it, from the
yeah,
chippy? It
of
could be a
course.
chip. It could be like, oh, salt and vinegar and eat the chip and it's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
you
and I think that if we go back to the senses, then we can see the magic and feel the magic. um, and very,
know,
very soon after that, I believe, comes gratitude for being able to enjoy all of that. um,
definitely. And with
mm,
gratitude, that completely changes your life because you
yeah,
can't feel in lack if you're
yeah,
grateful. It just doesn't work, does it? And I agree with that. And the more
mm,
you notice, the more you're grateful for.
yeah. And it's not, let's go again, it's about noticing the tiny things, it's not about buying a castle or a Ferrari. Not that if you have the means, go by all means, and you want a Ferrari, go and buy it, although ugly. my opinion. But if it, whatever rocks your boat. But it's not about that, because if you wait until you have the means to buy the Ferrari or the castle or to do this round the world trip to be happy, then you do nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It is, and it's things. It's mainly things that don't cost money. So it is
yeah,
things like, I'm really grateful that my ears work so I can hear music.
yeah,
I'm really grateful that I can feel the breeze on my face, on a warm day and there's a nice cool breeze. It's all these little tiny things. Or I really love it that my freckles come out in the summer, and I notice the more they come out.
mhm,
It is, and it doesn't have to cost any money at all. And
yeah,
then the more
no,
you tap into those things, the better life does become.
yeah, and it's about finding all the things that you already have that you're taking for granted. Also, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's hot water. Every time I take a shower, it's like, oh my God, how lucky am I, to live in a
Yes.
place and a time where I can, anytime that I want, go and have a hot shower. It's like,
Yeah.
yay.
Amazing.
And it does cost a little money, but, basically, for if you're listening to us on your computer or your phone, you have hot water, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
I
do
read a.
we do we
Sorry.
take the time to enjoy it, to really notice it, as in notice it not in passing, but actually focusing on it, taking
Mm,
this, how do you say, sacred pause, you
sacred
said.
pause.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
um
Definitely. I really love the shower when I've been to town and I come back and I get in the shower, mainly because I'm having a hot do, but I get in the shower and I feel that I really do feel the water all over my body, washing away everybody else's energy. And I'm really grateful for that. Or if it's a sunny day and the sunlight comes in and hits the shower and it makes these little droplets. And I just
mhm.
stand there for ages looking that it's just beautiful.
Mm,
It really is beautiful. I
yeah,
read a thing once that said that we are um, wealthier than kings and queens of the past because we've got indoor toilets. And I was
yeah.
like, whoa.
Yeah, indeed. I remember, my parents were hippies, so I grew up in communes and places where the toilets were not indoors. And I can tell you that to this day, and I'm 57 years old, the indoor toilet is a luxury that I'm not getting used to. I'm kind of, almost every time that I sit my ass on the toilet, I'm like, I didn't have to cross the yard to do so. But I used to, I was 4 or 5 years old, and we used to have a toilet outside. And I'm not complaining. It was an amazing childhood. But um, these things that we take for granted, they are not a strawberry, or that we can have that you can smell whatever you smell, that you can choose the music, because first of all you have ears, but then you can choose the freaking music that you listen to.
Yeah.
And there's so many amazing musicians to listen to, or sounds of nature. The other day I was feeling like I miss the ocean, and for various reasons this summer I'm not going to be swimming a lot. I've got surgery planned, etc., etc. And so I thought, oh, I would love to hear some ocean sounds. And I went and found some ocean sounds with whales, which was like, how
Uh,
posh is that? That I can at any moment listen to the singing of the whales in my own living room, where the ocean is 200 miles away, and it's like, I'm so
well,
lucky.
it's so incredible. I always think that about our
So
phones.
for yeah, for the
I was just
phone.
saying, I always think that about our phones.
Mm,
Imagine, like, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and back then, if you wanted to listen to music, you had to go and put a record on. You'd
yeah,
have to, go and do it. You
and then
couldn't
turn
just
it after,
scroll and
and then turn it
yeah,
after
and then
20
turn it
minutes.
over.
I
Yeah,
remember that, of course.
and if you wanted to phone somebody, you'd have to go to the phone box. We didn't have an inside phone. You'd have to go to the phone box and you'd have to arrange, right, at 6 o'clock, be by the phone box because I'll ring you. You
Hmm.
know, and but we've got these phones that do everything.
Mm.
Like, it's just a miracle. And
Yeah.
it's become, and I know not everybody in the world has got phones and you need money for a phone, but what I mean is it's those things that you could take for granted, you know, and it's noticing actually how lucky and amazing it is that we've
Yeah.
got access to these things now.
I would like to go back to one of the first things that you said around noticing, and you mentioned some grass creeping out concrete, because
Mm.
there's so many people that might be listening to this who live in cities and who say, "Oh, but nature is far away. I need to get out of town. I need to drive." And that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about climbing Machu Picchu, or
No, I live
going
in a
into,
city.
yeah. I don't, but and in a city, nature is everywhere. Um,
It is. You've just
mm,
got to look.
mm,
I took the dog for a walk this morning and I walked a different alleyway than I normally do. And there's a grid, and I've never looked down it before. So I don't know. Like, do you have grids in France where the water goes in the street?
yeah,
Is that what they're called? Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
So,
you say.
all right. So, so I walked past this grid and I was like, oh my God. And there was ferns growing down the grid because you could look down and there was all ferns inside. And I'd never seen this grid before. And I was like, oh, I need to come back with my camera and take a picture of that. It was the beautifulest grid in a grotty alley, and there was broken glass and bottles either side. Do you know of it? But this grid in the middle was the most beautiful thing I'd seen all
So it's
day.
about what we are choosing to focus on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. And I do live in a city. I mean, it is a lovely city, but you can notice in cracks in walls there's life. There's like new universes in
Yeah.
little cracks in
Mm.
walls, or in a hole. Or we walk down. There's a river here, and we went for a walk last night, and somebody had fed the ducks, and we was watching the ducks, and then I saw rats. Oh, it was brilliant, and we spent about half an hour watching the rats interacting with the ducks to try and sneak some bread off each other. It was the best thing ever. And
Mm.
so many people were just walking past because they were going and getting the shopping and stuff. And other people might not like rats, but it was fascinating. And that made my night. That made my
Mm.
whole night that we stopped and watched this thing,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
doesn't mean
So
that
it,
it's the same. It has to be rats for everyone. Whichever,
no,
whatever rocks your boat. In
yeah,
cities, from me, I love birds. There are birds all over the place, even in cities. Um, even the stupid pigeons I like.
I
Pigeons are
love
stupid,
pigeons.
but I think they're very interesting to watch. Um,
They are.
there's also one thing that is everywhere, and that's the sky. This afternoon, when I was in the migrant thingy memorial, after putting my hands on the grass, I just lie down and I
Mm,
watched the clouds. I hadn't done that for quite a while, to be honest, but I spent 10 minutes just watching the clouds move in the sky. And it was just like, it was a freaking movie. There were
yeah,
characters and, things were happening in there. And it
yeah,
was so good for my soul. For I felt literally rejuvenated by this, just watching the sky. And the sky is everywhere, even if it's gray and there's
yeah.
clouds, even if it's night. You sometimes are lucky enough to have the moon or stars, or so it's please don't use the argument of I live in a town, so there's no nature. um it's
You've just got to
that it,
start looking.
yeah, start looking, start listening. um
Yeah.
so is nature. Sometimes we're not happy about those. but
Do you know
yeah,
what I really
the
love as well? Sorry, Isaiah.
no, go on, go on.
I was going to say, do you know what I really love as well? When it's starting to go dark at night and people have got the lights on, but it's not really late, so they've not shut the curtains. And if
Hmm.
I'm going around walking the dog, and you can look in people's houses, and some are really interesting. Like, you don't stand there for ages looking in the houses. I don't mean that like a weirdo, but
Yeah, no.
just as
No,
you
no,
walk
I
in
see what you
that,
mean. It's like a shadow theater.
yeah,
People move, you can see
yeah.
people moving, and yeah.
Just
I do that
sometimes.
when I live in the middle of nowhere. So whenever I drive, when the night is falling, at sunset, this is what happens. So I can see the houses, the lights turning on, as I drive, and I can just see a
Yeah,
few shadows of people, and it's like, oh, there's people there. There's people everywhere, and it's and I wanted to also say something about, what if there's really nothing outside? How about the inside? I was thinking about my hands. Sometimes
oh,
when I can't fall asleep, I go and I do this. And this is a very sensitive place in my hand, and it makes me
mm,
feel good. So you don't
yeah.
need, or sometimes just picking at the little pieces of skin by my nail, which I eat like this.
I mean, I
Not a
do
good
that myself.
idea, but I love it. Yeah.
Yes,
And it gives me a little bunch of happiness, or so it's not about the big um, amazing things, because you never get there. We never get to the big things if we don't start with the small ones.
definitely not. And if people are listening and they think, "What? How do I do that?" If you close your eyes, so if I went like that on my skin, I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just rubbing my arm. But if I close my eyes and rub really slowly, I can feel every hair, every bump, and I can feel it with the tips of my fingers, but also on my other arm. So if you want to really get into this noticing thing, and you're just at home, start really noticing how it really feels to touch yourself.
Mm,
Like, make it do it on purpose.
mm,
I think a lot of times we do things that are not on purpose, but when you start to slow down and do things on purpose, you can actually really tap into that.
mm,
And that's a really different
yeah.
sensation. And if you've got a pet, do it on a pet, go
Mm,
stroke really slowly and feel the fur. Is it wiry? Is it soft? Is this hotter than this part? And
yeah.
it's that kind of thing to notice.
And as you were saying, with a blanket, with your clothes, with some wool, with some silk, and it's about, you mentioned that earlier on. It's also about shutting down maybe some of our senses to enhance the rest. So if I'm listening to music, maybe I close my eyes. If I try to feel the textures of things, maybe again I close my eyes, because the visuals are very often over shadowing everything, kind of,
Yeah, they're
um,
distracting, aren't they? I
yeah.
think sometimes. Yeah. Or the other way is you can, you know, put your hands over your ears and
Mm,
close your ears off,
mm,
and then listen what's inside your head. It's like, when
mhm,
you get a seashell and you put it on your ear and you can hear the
mhm,
ocean.
mhm, mhm,
You can do the same with your own
mm,
inner
yeah.
ocean. That's a really nice thing to do sometimes.
Or close your eyes and look at the inside of your eyes. I
Oh
think
yeah, I
they have
love doing
names.
that.
I think they have names, those things in the eye, the kind of colors and shapes that move
Yeah.
there. I had an eye operation last year, 2 years ago. Yeah, a year and a half. Nothing serious. So I was awake while they were doing it,
Oh,
numbed but awake, um, and I could see what was going on in
oh
my.
my
Uh,
gosh.
it was really amazing. Actually, I came up with a few paintings after that of what I remembered seeing.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you go through surgery, but really, um, I think it comes down to focusing and maybe slowing down,
Slowing down. Yeah.
taking a minute for that.
Hmm.
Because I'm guessing you in your grid, you kind of had to take the time, whereas the others were passing by, and
Yeah.
ignoring the thing. Um,
Yeah, you just stop in the moment and just let when you as a child, children do this naturally, don't they? They see something that's of interest, or they'll lie on the ground and look at the clouds. They'll do this naturally, and I think when we get out of childhood and we go into adulthood and we get busier, we tend to let all that stuff go. But actually, that stuff is the deep rooted stuff that we need to keep ourselves sane
mm,
and to enhance us, whether that's creatively or just in life generally. And I think the more you can tap back into that, what children do. If a child wants to, it'll just lie on the floor. If that's what it feels. Now, as a grown up, you'd be like, oh, I'm not just lying on the floor. Well, I do, but other grown ups wouldn't. Like,
Yeah.
actually, if you feel into that, what is that? And that lying on the floor thing is that groundedness, that connected to the earth,
Mm.
that resetting of your whole system, of letting it go back into the
Yeah.
earth.
Mm.
It's all these things that are really good for us, and we kind of forget, or we just get too busy with life.
Yeah.
So it's trying to tap back into that childlike wonder and
Mm.
that excitement of what you can notice. And if you
Mhm.
are starting out, you could start out by thinking, right, well, today I'm going to notice everything yellow. And then whether you're in your house or you go out or whatever
Mhm.
you do, just notice anything that's yellow. And it'll take a second. And what'll happen is the more you notice something that's yellow, the more yellow things you will see.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is how it works.
I love that. Yeah. So it's about focusing, noticing, making a conscious effort to notice, right?
Yeah,
Choosing
definitely.
to notice. Yeah. I remember
Yeah,
my what you were saying about children. I remember one of the things that my son used to do when he was something like 2. He used to collect little pebbles, and then he would go into the grids of the water grids, and he would love this sound, this plop sound, and he was obsessed. We kind of had to have pebbles in our pockets for months on end, because every time there was a grid, if we did not have a pebble to give him, he was like, I need a pebble. He was panicky. And
yeah,
so he was just, and it didn't need to do it twice or 3 times, just one plop was satisfactory for him. And so, yeah, I think that we have to also um, have pebbles in our pockets, kind of, be prepared to notice. Choose,
yeah,
like you were saying, the color, or be prepared to waste. And you can't, if you're listening to the podcast, you cannot see my quote marks, because I'm doing that with my hands. But if you're watching the video, you can. Yeah, it is about being okay for wasting some time to
mm,
notice, wasting some time
definitely.
to pay attention to whatever is happening right now, right here. Also, it brings
Yeah.
us back to the present, right? And
Definitely.
so that
And
that
it's not a waste, is it? It's people think it's a waste, which is what your air quotes
hmm
were for.
hmm
People think it is, but and they'll be like, well, I haven't got time to do that. I've got a busy schedule. And
hmm
it's like, I've got a busy schedule too, but I've got 1 minute.
hmm
Everybody's got 1 minute to just stop and look at something. Watch a spider on a spider web when it's been raining.
hmm
Watch what it does. There's like so many things that just 1 minute, and in the grand scheme of things, 1 minute is nothing. But I tell you what, it'll help reset your brain out of this busy, busy, busy into some kind of calm and
yeah,
centering
it brings
yourself.
you back to the absolute right now and
Yeah.
right here. And so that means that you cannot be focused on anxiety, on the future, on the past, on regrets, or on whatever. You are just here and now watching the spider, and that's it.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
when that works for me or for you, I'm guessing you get so lost in the thing that really I almost don't exist as a person. I'm
Yes.
just the viewer or the observer of whatever happens, or the listener, but I'm not doing anything. I'm just being a
No.
receptive um, vessel,
Yeah.
kind of, for
Definitely. Yeah.
for the magic of the world. And there is so freaking much magic. Um,
There is. It's everywhere, all
yeah,
the time.
in nature, in the cities. The I was in New York recently. I was lucky enough to go to New York, and it was not my first time, but the last time I went was 35 years ago. So it has changed. So have I. One of the things I remembered was it's noisy.
Oh yeah.
Well, way less, because they have electric cars now. So
Oh,
it's not that noisy anymore. So in New York, you can hear,
oh,
of course, there's ambulances and police and, all this city noise, but cars,
mm.
not so much. So you can
Whoa,
actually hear different things. You can hear the wind. You can hear the sirens of the boats because there are a lot of ferry boats in New York, right? Around Manhattan. So you can
yeah,
hear the boats way more than I remember hearing them 35 years ago. You can hear the sirens, and they kind of play music. For me, I don't live there, so it's still fun. It's still enjoyable. It might not if I lived there, but I'm not. So yeah, I think it's also be prepared to be surprised
definitely.
by the little things that will happen when you walk the dog or when you just walk down the stairs, basically.
Yeah. Do you know what I
Because
love, Isaiah? Well, oh, I'll just go back to New York. When I went to New York, the thing that I noticed was the smell from the big grids
yeah,
and the hot air that
absolutely.
comes from them. And the smell, it was like warm yogurt mixed
Mhm.
with I don't even know what. And I was like, oh my God, this smell. I'd never smelled it in my life before,
Yeah.
ever.
Mm.
Because that was really interesting. What
Yeah, and
I
I,
like
and
to
I
do
think
is,
I think I think I actually me neither. It's kind of
no,
characteristic, and it's not a nice smell. That's the other thing
no,
that maybe you can talk about that. The art of noticing is also about noticing things that are not pretty, as
yeah,
or beautiful, or they're just interesting. They're just
yeah,
different from your ordinary ideas. The cracks in my house in the walls are kind of worrying actually, because that means I need to, find a builder, a repair guy, and find a handyman. But they're interesting. They're interesting for my eye. They're interesting for texture things. So it's not about only looking at beauty, because this would be very difficult. Even ugly things or um, uh, weird smells or annoying noises can be noticed. Instead of what we do is we try to block everything that is annoying, right? I don't want to see that. I don't want to hear that. And that is very tiring, I think, because
very
again,
much,
it needs pushing away from uh, our present, trying to
yeah.
not be here where we are. So we might as well notice and try and enjoy it or find the
And
interest in it. Hmm.
yeah, accepting, isn't it? It's accepting it. This is what I can hear right now. This isn't going to last forever. You know, it'll
Hmm.
change. When I push the washing machine on, when you put the program on the washing machine,
Hmm.
it makes certain beeps, and
Hmm.
the beeps sound like music to me, like this. They sound like the start of a song. So
Hmm.
every time I do it, then I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a song." And I
Hmm.
asked my partner, I said, "Oh, what's that song when you put the washing machine on?" And he was like, "What are you on about?" And he hadn't noticed it, not at all.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the washing machine. I have a new washing machine because the other one collapsed. And this new washing machine does not have a button. It has a digital thing that you just have to just go by with. And I hate it. I loved my big button. It did a very nice plink sound, which I loved. And now it's all digital and it does some beeps that I hate, basically.
Yeah,
So I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the fact that I've also changed the detergent that I use for a more cleaner one, which smells nicer. So now I'm not going to focus on the beep because I don't like the beep. So I'm going to focus on the smell. So you can also choose something that you like to notice that
yeah,
might block out some. You mentioned your grid on the street, and there were broken bottles, etc., and you chose not to focus on that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's also nice practice for focusing on the good stuff in life, because there's always going to be shit.
Yeah, definitely. I did a video. We only moved to Lancaster a few years ago, and I did a video in the town. and I'd shared it on TikTok, and so many people commented on it, going, "Where's the rubbish? Have you cleared the rubbish away? Oh, it's disgusting living there." And I was like, "I've never actually seen any rubbish. I've never noticed any rubbish." Because I came from Blackpool, which is really full of rubbish. So moving here, I'd never noticed any
Mm,
rubbish. But
yeah.
since they said it, like loads of people over and over again, now I notice, oh, there's rubbish.
Mm,
But before I was in my bliss-filled little
mhm,
world of,
mhm.
oh, how lovely is this city? It's all clean. So it's really interesting, isn't it? How somebody else can influence what you notice
Yeah.
as well.
And it's again about making a conscious choice to focus and to notice and to pay attention to the things that bring you back to the present, bring you back to joy, bring you back to to feeling good, basically.
Mhm.
And yes, up to a certain extent, blocking out the rest because the rest is not doing you any favors. And I personally very strongly believe that when I am in no not in good shape, I am useless to the world. I am only useful to the world if I'm joyful enough to believe that I can make a change. Otherwise,
Definitely.
so uh, do it for you, do it for the world.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm.
It's like that saying, isn't it? That you've got to fill your own well first.
Mhm,
You can't
mhm,
keep giving and pouring out of an empty well.
mm,
And this is what I think this noticing is about. It's filling up your well
mm.
of good
Yeah.
things,
Mm.
you know, and
So
that
yeah, find your various little things, and please do it daily, because that's
yeah.
the
Oh
thing,
yeah,
right? Add up the
yeah,
minutes. I was thinking about another one. When I've just drunk something cold and my upper lip is cold, then the air that comes in my nose is cold as well, and I love
yeah,
that, feeling the air coming in, and it's not the
yeah,
same temperature as it's inside because it's just going through the little hair that are wet here. So I love that.
yeah,
So it's really the weirdest little things that makes us happy, right? Your washing machine, the cracks in the walls, um, and I would like to invite people who listen to find their own, because obviously we're just listing our personal favorites, or some of them, because we just thought about them. Basically, we did not make a list beforehand, by the way. um, but for me, there's also things like, I like when people and myself are dressed in ombre, so all in blue,
oh,
for instance. I love that. It's like it makes my soul go, yeah. So I, I do that when I travel. Mostly I carry a very small wardrobe, but it's all in one color, so I can play with the ombre style, and I feel very posh doing so. And it's so
I love
tiny.
that.
It's about,
Yeah,
instead of buying random colors, I decided I'll only travel with blue and pink. That's it. So I don't have that many clothes, but they're all blue and pink when I travel. So
that's
I
such a
know
good
that.
tip as well, because everything will go with everything.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Yeah, that's
Thus, I
a really
have
good
pink
tip.
glasses.
I love
But yeah,
that.
I think it's
That's really
it's about the time we dedicate to being in a noticing attitude, or
yeah,
and I love the idea that you mentioned, choose one thing. So today I'm going to notice the yellow, or today I'm going to notice texture, or choose one thing and then see that it grows.
yeah, and it really does. And if you want to take it further, you could say, right, well, today I'm going to notice pink things in my house, and then you can get yourself a tabletop or a little shelf or something, and every time you see something pink, obviously something small enough that you can move, put it on your little table in your little shelf, and then at the end of the day or the end of the week, you could do it over a week, you will have this shelf full of pink things, and
Oh, I
you'll be
love
able to,
that.
yeah, move them about so they are pleasing to the eye, and then take a photo of them. And it's like this recording of your noticing over the
Mm-hmm.
week.
Mm.
And you might not do anything with that, but then that might inspire you to go and make something, or go and buy something, oh, you think, oh, I just need a pink, I don't know, a pink hairbrush to go
Mm-hmm.
with my collection, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it can be something like that. Or as you said, I love nature, so I collect empty snail shells, conkers, acorns, leaves, feathers, you name it, anything that's, you know, I'm like a magpie, and often I'll put them in some kind of order. So it could be all round things from nature, or
Mm-hmm.
all things that are green, or you know, and it's just that slowing down again, giving yourself permission. It's okay if I take 20 minutes right now for no other reason apart from my joy to arrange these things. That's all it is, you know, and it just gives you this little boost. And if you've never done it, you might be thinking, this sounds ridiculous, like why would that make me happy? But it actually does. Just try it. Just yeah.
Yeah, and mostly if you believe us and try it, please don't judge yourself. You
Yeah.
know, try it earnestly,
Yeah.
not while at the same time thinking this is rubbish, this is rubbish, this is rubbish. Because obviously, you know, you're going to convince yourself. So
Yeah. And
if you're
you
giving,
won't get the pleasure.
Mhm, yeah. Um, so we have been talking for 15 minutes already. So we said we'd do 3 episodes. So to sum it up for episode 1, notice and practice noticing. Give yourself some tasks if you feel like it, or some prompts. So notice the yellow, slow down, take a breather, and see what comes. And if you want to share with us what are your favorite things to notice or your favorite area of noticing, we'd be amazed, and very grateful.
Yeah.
Of course. So thank you so much, Ruby, for being my guest this week. And well, we will see you next week with this episode 2, which I don't remember the title of, so don't even think about it. We'll see when we get there. But I
Thank
loved
you.
having this conversation. It was really fun. Thank you very, very much. I will talk to you all next week. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye.